Welcome to another edition of the Financial Literacy Program. Rabiri tshitse out jaaka re tle re bue. Re santse re le mo olwazing. Nedbank is hosting us, and we're thankful for these partnerships that stretch far and wide to ensure that at least we are able to get out of the province a little bit and see other parts of this country. We're in Gauteng, the weather is beautiful. You can feel that we are getting ready for summer. Today, we start another series. We're talking financial planning. And we want to zoom into the issues of women in particular because we're celebrating Women's Month. I said before that this month is important because we are reaping the benefits of many women who pledged their lives to ensure that we enjoy the freedom that we have today. And so as we seek liberation, many of South African women seek their financial liberation as well. We want to have financially independent women. But for us to do that, we need to ensure that our women are financially well, they understand their issues, the literacy is flowing very well, and we are able to structure them properly. As usual, I tell you guys all the time, I'm not alone, because obviously, I'm not a money expert, but when we're done with this show, I promise you, I'll be better. Right? Yeah, Winnie's agreeing with me. Yes, I'll be better. Today, finally, MEC comes to Gauteng with us because she has not been with us all this time. MEC,
hello.
how are you?
We are wonderful. Thank you.
Are you well?
Excellent. How are you?
It's
How
good
is
to
everyone doing? Very well. Good.
It's good to see you out of your province.
Yes, but it's nice to see Free Staters here, the home girls and homeboys. But of course, this is for the province,
Yes.
by the people of the province, in any setting, anywhere. So yes, we're happy to do this.
I guess it's also because the partnerships really far and wide enable us to go anywhere in this country.
Absolutely.
And seek the help that we need. We could be partnering with any province
Yeah.
just to ensure that the people of the Free State move forward.
Absolutely, and we're very excited about this issue. It's all about us ladies, so I am excited to hear what we have in store.
Beautiful. Let me introduce all around our panel, so
Perfect.
our people know who's here with
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you.
My baby, are you good? Chief.
No.
We're
no,
still in Gauteng.
Listen.
Are you well?
I'm well, and you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself to our people.
Hi, viewers. My name is Winnie Kamulani. I'm a financial advisor from Winpro Financial Services.
Beautiful. You know, MEC?
Thorn amongst roses.
You see? I was telling him that Tapelo from Nedbank
Yes.
is continuously the one gentleman
Yeah.
who always finds himself amidst the ladies.
Yes.
For a change, Tapelo's seat has been taken. Zweli
Okay.
has,
Of course.
you see,
Of course.
Zweli has reclaimed that position. I don't know if Tapelo has a seat on this. At least Nedbank still has a seat, whether Tapelo is here or not. You know?
Yeah.
Zweli, introduce yourself to our people.
Hi everyone. Igama Nguzweli Twala. I'm from FNB. Thank you.
We always say on this show that we do not have permanent residents. So we have a new member of the family today. Fifi,
Hi.
are you?
I'm good. Thanks, and you?
Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you.
Introduce yourself to our nation.
So, full name is Refilo Mabileta. I am a wealth manager with Nedbank Private Wealth.
I tell you all the time, we'll bring you wealth. You see? Hello, baby. Hello, sugar. How are you?
I'm great, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I'm just missing my kids. We've been here for long now. Yeah.
Ahulika.
I can't wait. It's fine. I think I'm starting also to gain some kilos. So I have to go home.
They're feeding us, aren't they?
They've been feeding us since day one. It's been beautiful.
Beautiful.
Really.
Oh.
It's been so nice.
Okay, so let's do the show so we can release you. Right?
Please.
Please. Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, it's Lerato Mabale from Standard Bank.
Now, we have been talking about, MEC, we did a 3-part series, obviously, on marriage and money, divorce and money, and death and money. And we have been in conversation, and over again, one of the issues that has come up is that you need to plan ahead. We can't take it for granted that we plan ahead. But one of the things I think that I want to raise with you is the fact that, when I started work, I did not know what financial planning is. We have a contingent, a huge number statistically of women who are in the public sector,
Yeah.
right, who have dedicated their lives
Yes.
in the public sector. Outside of that, we have young women who are now entering the workplace. How important is it for government to have women who are financially prepared
Yeah.
to handle their money?
Yeah. No, I think that's a very critical question. It is no secret that women are the best managers of money. It comes from historic.
Did you hear that, Zweli?
Historically or not, stats and research states that women are the best managers of money, and it didn't matter which tier of earnings women were in, if it was lower or upper tier, women are thus still the best managers of money. We do, from time to time, get caught up in the glam. I get that. And that is why we're here, is to say, okay, how do we manage those times? And what is it that we save? What is it that we spend on ourselves? And what is it that we spend on necessities? And I think we've all heard that over the past series. But I believe that often we women are not necessarily understanding the planning side, both in commitments, either be it through business, which is a contractual capacity, business to business, in a sole proprietorship, a PTY, director, whatever it may be, and also in a marriage contract. We don't necessarily understand how to contract ourselves in a marriage or amongst family, because the black tax issue still is a concern. And as women, we don't only look after ourselves, but we look after the neighbors, we look after cousins, we look after brothers' children, and we take on all those responsibilities. Now, being in a working environment and starting or entering in a working environment, or doing it for yourself as a business owner, or growing into receiving your degree, your honors, and all of a sudden you move from a 10,000 Rand a month salary to a 50,000 Rand a month salary. What is it that we do? And given the economy and the rate of how the volatility of what our economy has done through many global and macro aspects, COVID, global warming, the economy in itself in terms of inflation, what it is that we are paying towards our interest right now, I can assure you many people are complaining about the same thing. Our interest rates have actually doubled our repayments on our bonds and our vehicles and so on and so forth. It is a big and a lot of pressure for some of us who have to take care of an entire household. So it is important for us through the series that we do not only talk about planning for those circumstances. And there's your 7-year cycle. In any economy, there's a 7-year cycle, and you'll find that the volatility, where interest rates reach sky level, it goes down, and that's really the time that you would save. And where there are opportunities that are challenging, you invest, and you find mechanisms to prepare yourself for the next uptake in the cycle. For me, I think the series in itself, overall, is another question that I want to bring about to this panelists, but also a thought, is that we as black people don't know about generational wealth. How do we build trusts? How do we ensure that if anything happens in a marriage, in a business, we are separated from the individual? And that if we've got a family trust, how does our kids and our grandchildren still live off some little wealth that you've made during the good times? so that when a liquidation aspect happens, or when a divorce happens, or when something goes
death.
wrong, a death, whatever it may be, and these are real things. I know we hate talking about it. Part of the issues that we have with money is we hate talking about the risks, but we have to. And that is where we have to find ways to plan for generational wealth and leaving a financial legacy for our children. So that's ultimately what a woman strives to do. And that is why your question about women coming into work, into the private sector, in savings, society schemes, whatever, it's always for everybody else but ourselves.
Wonderful. Now, Auslarat, we're speaking about financial planning. It sounds easy, but it also sounds sophisticated, and it's important that we simplify it for our people. We're talking to normal South Africans here.
Yes.
Let's simplify what financial planning is.
Thank you so much, Lorato. For the fact that you know, from the day that the child is born,
Right.
you already know that at some point this child must go to school, at some point this child must finish, at some point this child must get to a point whereby they must form part of the workforce.
Right.
And unfortunately, during that period, there are some needs and necessities that still needs to be taken care of. So you cannot park and say, I will only start providing at this point in time. You already start doing whatever that necessary during that period, with the ultimate goal in mind that at some point this child is going to finish school and then enter this workforce. Now, when you enter workforce, it's very critical as well to check to say, now that I've got this job, what are my pension options?
Okay.
So previously, you would just know that I'm paying for pension. But how many times did some of us go and interrogate that information to say, how much am I saving towards my pension? And MEC touched base on the interest rates. At this point in time, everybody that's in debt, like all of us, we are stressed because of now interest rates are going up. However, we do not know the impact and effect that has on your savings, your pension fund, your unit trust and everything, which is where now the focus must be at. So now when you are smart and then you start analyzing and understanding this financial planning, that's when now when you see that interest rates are starting to go high, or we are in that seven-year life cycle, you say, perhaps now it's time for me to review my contribution towards my pension fund, so that now I'm building for the future. And then once you see that now interest rates are going down to accommodate us who are living and still striving to make sure that we acquire debt and all those things, or we are in some sort of credit with the providers, that's when now you start saying, okay, fine, now that there's a shift in this interest rate spike, now this is where I need to focus. So at this point in time, it's very critical for each and every individual to start understanding the impact that when interest rates goes up has on your pocket.
Right.
And then also when they go down, they have on your pocket as well. And then when you talk about when is it the right time to say, now I'm starting to understand or do financial planning, it is very important to make sure that I can clearly say there's no better time. Immediately when a child is born, the parent at that point in time should start already planning towards the child. And then immediately when the child gets matured enough to understand the language, you start educating your child from that point, so that they grow into understanding this financial planning, financial wellness, finances, and their whole being. And perhaps that will also have an impact on the type of career path and everything that they would want to follow in the future.
I see. Sweeney, let's talk about the financial plan.
Yeah.
What is a financial plan?
So a financial plan, it's a tool that guides you into where you are, or it sort of takes you from where you are and to where you're going.
Okay.
So I always say that, I ask this question often, is your past self proud of your current self now,
Okay.
on how you handled your finances ever since you started earning an income, whether a stipend, whatever. Is your past self proud of, or rather, is your present self proud of your past self?
Yes.
And also, will your future self be proud of your present self? So that's the thought of financial planning. You need to think of yourself in the future, where you're going. Because when you're about to take a trip to Cape Town, you plan for it. And as you plan for it, you will reach some sort of hurdles on the way.
Right.
But what do? You don't turn back. You still continue because there was a contingency plan into jumping that hurdle and going through. So it involves your investment, it involves your risk cover, and it also involves your retirement planning as well as not only for yourself, but for your loved ones, because there's that risk aspect in it, and also your third parties, which could be people that you're taking care of in your home.
Right. Refilwe, why is it important that everybody has a financial plan?
It's critically important because life can either happen to you or you can take charge of your life and be in the driving seat. So what a financial plan does, it actually gives you the opportunity to just honestly really take responsibility for yourself. And then only from a position of strength, once you're okay holistically, are you then in a better position then to look after your extended family, your community, etc. So the thing that is particularly unique to women that I want to highlight, because I always say this, men tend to be better with money because they seek advice. They're not shy to go and ask.
Okay.
For example, if I go and do a presentation or a talk, and in the audience there's a combination of men and women, very rarely, if ever, will a woman come and ask me afterwards questions. But the men will definitely come and ask me questions.
I want to attest to that, and Winnie will agree with me, because I think part of in this
Our
panel
previous-
particularly, when we were in Clarence, so we had the program go to Clarence, and we had a live audience when we were in Clarence that was made up of both men and women.
Yeah,
All of the questions came from the
from
men.
men. Yeah,
Literally, in
absolutely,
the room.
Absolutely.
In that composition, all of the questions, and we even ended up saying it as a team, that every single question we had Mivuyo, who was speaking about housing and property, all of the questions came from men. All of them. We spoke about debt,
Yeah,
all of the questions came
Yeah.
from men.
that's so
Though
true.
we had both men. What was interesting, though, was that then the women would come and ask in little small corners, right? And they were not, and I think when we were speaking about marriage and money, we spoke about the issue of confidence.
Yeah, women speaking up for themselves.
Speaking up for yourself, because it's such a critical thing that we fail to do as women.
Right.
So I think I'm saying that, and probably MEC, because I know that part of what you want us to do is to do a live audience with women, because we are in Women's Month, is to have that and actually have a proper interaction with women,
Right.
so that we are able to get real life touching subjects and questions from women about their own experiences and finances, which is what we're lacking currently.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But I'd like to add to that, sorry, before
Yes,
I hand
yes.
back over to you, is that another interesting topic that we discussed yesterday was financial abuse, because money is also utilized as a tool to mentally abuse
A
people
relationship.
or a relationship both ways.
Yes.
So finance or money has got some link to a level of power.
Yes.
And whoever has the most of it holds the power. But also, I feel that the patriarchal way that we understand money, and that is what we're trying to change through these sessions, is that money doesn't, the decisions about money doesn't remain with the man. We've got this idea that the man goes out, he makes the money, comes, gives you whatever it is that you need to for the household, and the rest in terms of the big financial decisions, the wealth decisions, the planning decisions, all is concluded by the man. And to some extent, we're seeing this balancing out, and sometimes the scales are tipping. But I think at some point in that segment that we're going to have this month is the abuse
Yes.
that comes with financial power. And I'd like us to also have that conversation. And that is why you find that more men are confident to talk about it, because it is a cultural thing.
The power
And
thing.
we've got, this is why we've got this, is to change that going forward.
It also adds into what Lerato, Refile, just hold that thought. It also adds to what Lerato said when we were discussing marriage and money. She raised an important subject that at the time when partners bring children into the marriage, that scale has, we always find it challenged because there's power issues that come along. And sometimes the power also rests on the fact that who manages the household and who manages the finances in the household. Because sometimes you want to bring the child in, but there's resistance. And we have to find a middle ground so that the grass does not, does not suffer when the two elephants fight. So, that combination, the power, the money, and who controls what, then comes into play. And MEC, one of the things that has come forth in the discussions when we were now discussing divorce and money, I think we were doing divorce and money, was that, and which is something that I think critically then comes out even when we come to financial planning, is that an individual is responsible for their part when it comes to financial planning.
Yes.
Because it then comes back to you as a person to say, have I done what is necessary? We all disturbed you.
Yes, Refil last matter just on this point. I'm sorry, we are disturbing you. But what I'd like to add is that we cannot leave the kids behind, because kids can also play a large, an abuse of power when it comes to money. It's like, if you don't buy me an iPhone, you don't love me. If you don't buy me this, you don't care about me. And that is also abusive to a certain extent. And our financial positions change over time. So there are times when you can afford all these wonderful, expensive things, and we've brought them up to have a spoiled type of lifestyle because we could afford it. And when that changes, when your financial situation changes, a child does not understand that I cannot afford this right now. So hence, planning and these discussions are critical, and for adults to be open about their children as to how money is dealt in the household. They should be part of that family planning discussion. They should be part of making those decisions in the household when we deal with family planning or financial planning, so that those type of abusive tendencies do not cripple in or creep in during the changes of your financial positions throughout the year. But back over to you.
How well did you hold that thought?
Oh my goodness. I love the discussion, the way it just sort of organically flowed, because I'm also learning a lot from the conversation.
Right.
But what I wanted to add on to what Winnie was talking about, the plan, is what a plan does, especially if you partner with a professional. It doesn't have to be a wealth manager. You don't need to have millions and millions. It can be a financial advisor. It's that it's something that helps you to anticipate these stages of life that are going to happen, right? It's inevitable. We're all going to die. As you get older, you get sick, you retire. So just to highlight specifically for women, because as I say, I know men are covered, because I know they know where to go get the help, and they generally tend to. Most of my clients are men, as you can imagine. So specifically now talking to the women, there are things you need to know that are unique and specific to you as women. You earn less, most probably. So when you start working, you might not even be thinking about saving for retirement, because you might not even be earning enough. That delay in when you start affects how much you're going to actually end up with at retirement. Then there are other things men don't have to deal with, like maternity leave. Are you able, what are the contractual obligations or terms in your employment contract regarding maternity leave?
Right.
In other words, is that something that disrupts your retirement planning, your investments, et cetera, et cetera? So there are things that women need to be thinking about before you get married, for instance, the marital regime that the MEC referred to. Do you want to be taking on your spouse's personal debt? Because you would, if the marital regime is one where you're married in community of property. So financial planning allows you to anticipate all these different things. The birth of a child, what does that then mean? And then do you stop working? I've seen friends who stopped working for a number of years. Psychologically and physically, that has an impact. So you need to be able to anticipate all these different things, and then as you get older, as you approach retirement, is your investment portfolio adequately invested? Is it appropriate for you to be able to meet to provide you with an adequate income in retirement? So financial planning is holistic. It really isn't just budgeting and a tick box exercise. It's who you are as and when things happen. Are you prepared for unforeseen eventualities? Do you have adequate insurance? So it's a holistic thing that does need to be a living thing that is flexible, that takes into consideration the fact that nobody knows what the future holds, but you can position yourself as best as possible to weather whatever may come.
Now, Zweli,
Yes.
let's structure our goals.
Okay.
We're planning financially.
Yes.
What would our goals look like?
So obviously our goals would need to be divided into three. You'd have your short-term goals,
Okay.
you'd have your medium-term goals, and you'd have your long-term goals.
Okay.
So on short-term goals, you're looking at anything between 0 and 24 months. That's
Okay.
something that you need to achieve within 2 years. And then in your medium-term goals, you're looking at 2 to 5 years. And then anything above 5 years, that's your long-term goals. So depending on what you want to do and what you want to achieve, you will then classify it amongst those three brackets.
Okay.
But the other thing about goals is you can set them, but if you don't do anything towards those goals, then they're as good as a tick box exercise. So whatever goals that you have, you need to take the necessary action behind it to achieve those goals.
It's like an eating plan. It's like an eating plan, you know?
I want to lose this, but I'm busy not doing anything about it. So
It's like got a plan.
yes, I do have a plan, but I'm just not acting on it.
It's like an eating plan. Rafina, we're talking about this loosely, but let's talk about if I had to sit down right now with my financial advisor and come up with a financial plan, tying it in with my short, medium, and long-term goals, what kind of conversation would I be having? What would my focus be? And I want you to tie it for single mothers particularly, because one of the things that we hardly ever speak about is single mothers. We speak about women, but I think one of the things that we never give focus on is single mothers, and we need to sort of kind of give us a picture, because let me tell you, some people on this panel, I won't name them, when we were doing marriage and money, they were showing off their rings. We're not going to, and they reminded me that 2 salaries are better than one.
Oh my
Some
goodness.
people on this panel. We won't mention them by name. It's fine. But when you're a single mother, you're working with one salary, and you could be a business person, but your focus is what you're getting into the house. Now let's look at how we would financially plan. If I was a single mother and I had one income, what would I be focusing on?
Sure. So this topic is a very sensitive one for me because I have quite a few number of women in my life
Okay.
who are single mothers raising children without support.
Right.
And it's very difficult to watch them struggle literally month to month.
Right.
Some months is I can't pay for school fees, some months is I can't pay. Yes, so center myself, back to
Right.
myself.
There we go. Center must hold.
Right.
Right.
So what I would say is, in fact, I had a conversation right before we had this discussion. A young lady reached out to me
Okay.
and was basically saying, I'm a single mother, I don't earn enough, I'm basically drowning in debt. So what happens is when you have an initial discussion with an advisor, we start with where you are.
Cool.
So if you're overly indebted and you are drowning in debt, I can't talk to you about lofty things like setting up a trust and investing offshore, right? I've got to literally stop the bleeding with you.
Right.
So the conversation I had with her just initially was just to try and understand how much of her budget is actually servicing her debt. So if the bulk of your income is going towards servicing debt, that's literally what we then need to do. To stem the bleeding, to stem the tide, we pay down debt aggressively. Even when interest rates pull back, I say to her, do not be tempted when that installment comes down to reduce the amount you're paying. Keep paying as if the interest rate was high, because I need you to get out of debt.
I want you to say that again.
Okay.
I think it is a critical nugget that we need to, on this program. We continuously have these little nuggets that we want our people to take away. So I want us to say that again. Even when,
So even when interest rates come down,
right,
because they likely have peaked or are very near peaking.
okay,
When the Reserve Bank starts to actually decrease interest rates,
Right.
I want you to maintain the level that you're paying right now. So
Okay.
the installment will come down, right?
Right.
Because it fluctuates with the interest rates.
Correct.
Do not adjust the amount you're paying towards debt. I said keep it at that amount. I said I know it's tough because you are already paying so much of your income towards debt. But I want to instill in her a discipline and a mindset to say debt hurts, especially because you don't control interest rates, right? We don't get to fix, the banks determine, and they say you're getting a floating rate, it's non-negotiable. So that means if it's going to go up by 5% and your installment doubles, that's what's going to happen. So with people like her and single mothers, they generally are in that situation where it's expensive debt as well. It's credit card debt. So it's not good debt where you're paying off property and you're building and accumulating wealth.
I hear you.
It's literally credit card debt. Mashonisa, I'm patching wherever I can, and it now basically is a spiral.
Recurring.
Right, and you don't get out. So
Right.
basically the key is the planner will start with where you are. So if it's getting out of debt, that'll be the first step.
Right.
Once you're out of that, then the next step is these short-term to medium-term now. Now we start looking and exploring other things like, do you have emergency savings, right? What if you get unemployed?
And it's still not cushioned things.
No.
Because it's almost now as if you're starting life from scratch.
It is.
If I could say that.
Yes. You are spot on, because I'm having this conversation with women who are 45, right? You've just gone through a divorce. You've pretty much lost everything. Your
Yes.
balance sheet, everything has been wiped out. This could be happening at 50.
Yes.
Wherever you are with the financial planner, we will start exactly there. So then once you immediately out of that debt spiral, now we're moving into, okay, do you have enough for emergency savings? Now we can start planning for the medium term to longer term goals, retirement, et cetera, et cetera. But I would advise people to say, please seek advice. The sooner you do, even before you start getting your first paycheck. I talk to students and I say, before you get your first paycheck, you need to know what to do with that paycheck. Start there. Even before you have the child, even before you get married. So these conversations are us coming reactively after the fact. I encourage people, plan ahead before the marriage, before the child, before your first job.
We're going to a break, but let me tell you, we need when we spoke on marriage, was it marriage and money, Larato, when Winnie said, or was it you, Zweli, who said marriage is not an eventuality? Right? Was it you? He's not like Zweli, right? Zweli said marriage is not an eventuality, and we were talking about planning for marriage, because we wake up and people want to say, well, I've got 60% to get married, and they said, no, you don't wake up in July and say, next month I'm getting married.
Exactly.
Because marriage is not an eventuality.
Absolutely.
You look forward to it. And so when you look forward to it, your financial plan should also focus towards your marriage.
Absolutely.
Let's run to a break quickly. When we come back, we continue this conversation. Don't go away.
My name is Tumelo Martin. I make sure that I budget first. After budgeting, I pay my children's school fees. I pay for my rents, and case I will need about then I take the loan for the important like cars and then like I'm paying for my bond now and my loan for a car. then a ke itse dikoloto tse ding ka mora moo, and ke etsa sure ya hore at least 80% of my salary it goes to my investments.
An enriching conversation that we are having. I am with my partners in finance as usual.
Yes.
And we are teaching our Free State communities. Let me see, when we started, we said this is not about the Free State. You know, it is about the Free State. But I guess whenever it goes onto the platforms, anybody has this information. So we are really enriching the nation. You see? Yeah, this is not just about the Free State, but it is about, you know, our Free State communities. That is our first focus, to make sure that our Free State communities have all of this information. Today we're talking about financial planning, an important matter. Refilwe said to us, you could be 45 and you have to start all over again. What do you do?
Yeah.
Now, Oswini, there's a term, I agree, you guys always teach me new terms.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the new term that you guys are teaching me today. Risk tolerance.
Okay.
What is risk tolerance?
Okay.
Yeah.
So risk tolerance speaks to the capacity that any individual can be able to handle or stomach risk.
Okay.
So it works mostly in your investment portfolios, like your
Okay.
retirement, especially if it's long term. You've got to be able, when you do your financial plan and you sit with the financial planner, to determine how much of the risk tolerance can you take in those portfolios in order for you to choose the right portfolio. Because you know the term that says don't put your eggs in one basket.
Right.
You sort of like spread the risk. So you'd have a portfolio that has higher volatility of risk, and then you've got the one that has moderate, and then you've got the one on the higher end of the lower end of the spectrum. So you would want to then set up your investment in such a way that with a low risk tolerance or low risk portfolio, you would earn an income from there. And then on the higher risk portfolio, because it has more, you know, options or more tolerance towards risk, you would want to put your income for retirement there, because there you need time. So the time that you have in the market would make up for whatever shortfalls you would have had. So everything that has to do with your planning, like Fifi has said, you had to plan it according to your risk tolerance. So we can't just take you as an individual. If you are 23-year-old, we put you on a low risk profile or portfolio, because your investment wouldn't grow. We need to put you on a high risk sort of portfolio, because then your investment has an option to grow higher there. But if you're a 65-year or 50-year-old, we can't put you on a more turbulent fund because you don't have time in the market. So we've got to be more conservative there. So risk tolerance speaks to mostly your investments. How much of the market risk can you stomach? There's nothing wrong with taking on risk, but can you also?
But I guess, MEC, reflecting on this, there's also risk attached to, and I think you are coming, I'm now using your previous portfolios also, you're coming from economic development, and we have a lot of SMMEs that we deal with in the province. And the risk that you would look at in terms of government employees as opposed to the SMMEs who are supposed to be creating livelihoods out there, you know, differs. But it also could be looked at burdensome for some because of some of the challenges that SMMEs face, especially
Right.
after COVID.
Right.
You know, as opposed to if you are a government, yes, we are planning for everybody, but I think when we think about it, we have to think about the challenges that SMMEs
Right.
are facing currently, and the risk that goes with it.
Yeah. So I think that you know, when you start a tertiary education, one of the most critical teachings that you'll learn is a pestle analysis, and that can be reintroduced in our personal capacity and in the entrepreneurial capacity. So we find that in every thesis or business case or plan, and even in your personal life, you understand how do you unpack that. So there's this environment that's out of your control, called the macro environment.
Yes.
And what it entails is the political changes, as an example.
Yes.
You looking at the economic challenges and changes. You're looking at the socio-economic challenges and changes, the technological, and you can see it with AI in the arts industry.
Yes.
You can see it with promoters, and you see it in the environment, and that's what happened with the floods, some of the disasters,
Yes.
and then of course the legislative environment. Now, putting all of that together, both in business and in your personal capacity, those are aspects that is out of your control, but it is absolute risk aspects. And as an individual who is planning their money, you would want to consider a stress test in terms of your net asset value, your balance sheet, or your personal income, or whatever it is that you want to do. How are those aspects going to affect my plan going forward? And what level of risk does this plan, would it be able to absorb all these things that are out of my control?
Yes.
Now, this that is in my control, how do I manage and mitigate that risk? And that is what we need to do. Now, SMMEs follow the same path, and that is why sometimes when we're really looking at very high valued transactions and funding, we ask for those stress tests. We look at if an interest rate goes up, if it goes down, if, for example, the currency goes up, goes down, you're looking at a baseline, and you look at an average analysis of all these indices and functions in order to be able to understand how much borrowing any industry, institution, or whoever is able to do, so that we manage and mitigate the risk. And then that then becomes the lever towards how you can either grow and expand or kind of tighten the belt in order to deal with whatever it needs to go forward. So I think it's important that one has to reflect on those issues, because the minute we start panicking is when things are out of our control. And the only way you're going to be in control is to understand what is right here, right now. How do I mitigate that is out of my control, and really be in charge of how I handle that over the short to medium and long term. All right, I hope I've been able to finish this conversation.
Fifi, let's speak about risk planning. We've spoken about the death and money. Let's speak about risk planning, because we said it, that it's an uncomfortable conversation for us to speak about death, for instance, let alone just living. Winnie said, if you can't plan for your death, it means you can't plan to live.
I love that.
Yeah, she said, if you can't plan for death, it means you can't plan to live. So let's speak about risk planning.
Sure. So it's about having the right approach to it, even financial planning, budgeting. Once you almost have this hesitation and this sense of dread around something, you don't look forward to it, you don't enjoy it. So I always encourage people, especially women, to say, get comfortable with money, get comfortable with death, talk about it with family, let's talk about health checks amongst ourselves. When was the last time you went for this or that thing? It's the same with death. Do you have a will that is up to date? Especially the single moms you referred to earlier. I always ask them that question to say, okay, in the event that you pass away, who's going to be the guardian? Who's the person who's going to look after your child? Has that person demonstrated a responsibility and a track record of being good with money? So they might be able to provide the nurturing aspect and be really good at that, but are they going to be good at the financial aspect of it? So it's really risk planning or risk mitigation is about saying, this is life. Anything can happen at any point in time, but I don't have to be afraid because I'm positioned to weather it. So if you look at assets, for example, you have a car, it makes sense to have insurance, right? That's how you protect it, to make sure if anything happens, you know you've got that level of comfort when you're driving to say, okay, if anything happens, I can claim. The same goes for your valuables in your property, in your home. Do you have adequate insurance there? So risk planning is really just saying, I'm not living with the sense that of doom that something bad is going to happen, but I'm also not losing sleep at night over assets, cars parked outside, or a house or property or belongings. I can actually just get on with my life. Because if this laptop falls into the pool or something random happens, guess what? It's covered. I know that I'm covered. But yes, the bigger, really more important key takeaways, especially for women, is make sure that there is a will. I do generally tend to say to women, have a conversation with your husband, because women are usually not confident enough when they come into the banks. I don't know why why we intimidate women, but but they always want to bring their spouse. But I always say to them, also have your own conversation,
Yes.
and see whether the joint will or your own will makes sense, and then have the questions you cannot ask when your spouse is in the room. So have that single conversation to say, okay, am I okay? Am I going to be able to pay for the garden, the pool, the school fees? Literally, if this man passes on now,
now.
drops dead, how do I pay for the lights? How do I pay for this? How do I pay? A lot of women come to us and it's like, I'm so sorry, his will is not even here at Nedbank. No, but he was a client for the longest time. Sorry, his will is not here. So you can just imagine the pain, the horror that you have to deal with. Not only are you grieving, but now you haven't put certain things in place. So the key takeaways, if I could just summarize, I would just say make sure you've got a will in place. Make sure that you also have short-term insurance. If you're in business, as the MEC was talking about, there are certain types of insurances that you can have. If you're in partnership, in case your partner dies, do you want to be dealing with that partner spouse and inherit her as a business partner? Maybe not. So these are things that you can plan for in the eventuality that anything could happen. So do scenario planning for yourself. If A, then B. If not B, then C. If not C, then D. If my grandmother is the one who's the initial caretaker, then she passes away, then my sister. But my sister's married to somebody in community of property. Do I really want my sister to inherit? Because that man, so these are all the things, all the scenarios that with the right planner, they will ask you all these relevant questions and they'll make sure you cover your bases. Because don't wait for the eventuality to happen and then scramble. Then it's late.
Yeah. Zweli?
Yes.
We're talking about risk planning.
Yes.
How do I know my risk status?
Okay, so your risk status will be based on a couple of factors, but I will also let the panel to chip in and add as well because it's quite broad. But it will look at your age as
Okay.
well. It will look at the activities that you're involved in as a person or that you do.
Okay.
It will also look at the type of assets or investments that you have.
Okay.
It will also look at the type of liabilities and responsibilities that you have. So with all that combined, you'll then get your risk status.
Okay.
But there are certain things that you can actually take up, as Ofifi mentioned. You can take up insurance for certain things. You can also be open with your beneficiaries on certain things so that they know and they're aware that there are certain things in place. And talking about risk as well is certain investments, you can actually link beneficiaries directly to them so that it does not form part of your estate. It does not take time for them to actually get the funds out of that particular account, and so that they can continue with their way of life.
This thing, I think, Lerato, boils down again to the communication
Yes.
that we spoke about when we were speaking about marriage. But I want to ask a difficult question, a funny, difficult question. Zweli says, I must speak to my beneficiaries
Yes.
about the fact that they are my beneficiaries. Is that not a risk?
Somehow.
Good question.
Because I really want to speak about that. And I think I'm saying this because some of the people that are beneficiaries on our policies don't know that
Yes.
they are beneficiaries on our policies for a reason most of the time.
True.
And it comes down again to the discussion we had about marriage and money and death and money. Because, and you guys said, if a policy cashes out and my sister gets 1.5 million into her account, that is supposed to look after my children
Yep.
should I die.
When
I
you
When you
die.
die.
When I die. Let me correct. Yes, you guys reminded me. There's no should. You said the likelihood is that her first thought would be what?
Settle her
Headache.
bills. Right? It's true.
Now,
But then conditions. Shall we go into that?
You see, and MEC, you are right when you say there are conditions, and that's why I'm raising this here, so that we are able to discuss it.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at this from a perspective that sometimes we do not have wills in place that are able to speak to these
The
things.
conditions.
And every week when we meet, we speak about the importance of having one in place that would enable a better conversation within the family. Let's speak to those exceptions.
Yeah. So I think that it is important, and that is why, as I started the segment, I spoke about us as black people. We never really thought of a will or a trust or a living trust or whatever it is that we may understand in terms of our legal I wouldn't say obligations, but also the legal options that we have to protect our wealth and to protect it for the means in which we intend it to be for. So if you have a policy that is to be paid out to a guardian of your kids, that policy, at the point of opening that policy, there should be conditions, and you've got a right to amend the policy annually, every 6 months, or any time you'd like to amend it. So I would want you, if you're going to learn anything out of today's segment, is that if you do find an opportunity to put together a will, or you want to create a policy for your children, if it's for the university, outline that this is for university fees. Outline in that policy that this payout is to go to a trust for the kids that is going to feed their monthly obligations, and when they are 21, these are the following conditions towards how they will spend that money. So you have to plan it and think about all those eventualities. This is the most difficult part of whatever it is that we're trying to do, because the hard conversations must happen. And the conversations that you think, oh my gosh, my sister will never do this to me, or so-and-so will never, trust me, in today's society, at the center of everything, we are forgetting, what our values and ethics are when it comes to money issues. And we've got to be open and honest with ourselves at that level to say, I've got a plan for any eventuality, and that's the bottom line. But there are conditions, and these specialists today who are accredited to talk to you about those conditions will tell you what they are.
Okay. Now, Lara, we spoke about risk planning. We spoke about risk tolerance. Let's speak about the estate plan in line with financial planning and why it is important for us to link the two so that we have a better livelihood moving forward.
Look, for the fact that at some point in time you're going to reach to a certain point whereby you need to either go on retirement, or you die, or maybe you go through a divorce, or whatever the case might be. Winnie mentioned something that you mentioned earlier as well, to say if you don't plan to die, then it means you are not confident in what you are doing at this point in time. So when you plan estate, it's very important that you check what is it that my estate is made up of.
Right.
And also touch base, and it's very important. I'm going to stress this over and over again. Fifi mentioned something very important: consulting. Do not be fooled by the fact that you know everything.
Yes.
Or do not be fooled by the fact that, no, it won't happen to me.
Right.
This is my sister, I know her, I trust her, whatever the case might be. Make sure that you take care of you before you can even involve other people. So the first point is to seek assistance.
Right.
Because remember, at this point in time, I'm working in a financial institution. I'm not a doctor. So when I'm sick, I go to the doctor.
Correct.
I will outline the symptoms, and then the doctor will give me a proper diagnosis of my symptoms and what he saw when he was checking me. So with the little bit that we are sharing in this platform, it's your duty as an individual to take this little information, go to an expert and say, you know what, I need you to to take me step by step in terms of my estate. When we talk about estate, what is it that we are talking about? You ask those questions. And when you talk about estate, what are the things that are included in the estate? Because in most cases, and we touched base on it when we were talking about divorce and money, no, not divorce and money, death and money. People think I'm an executor, or I've got power of attorney, or I'm a beneficiary, therefore I'm only interested in what I'm inheriting. But they forget about the liabilities as well. So it's very critical to make sure that you understand that piece of estate planning. You understand the costs that comes with it. You also seek professional assistance. You don't just take chances with your life and the lives of your children, because you won't be here to rule from the grave. And then you must also, at the same manner, you go back and say, now that the estate piece is sorted and I understand it, can I now seek another professional assistance in terms of financial planning holistically? And we need it mentioned to say it's very critical that you should have a financial planner for your family.
Yes.
And I touch base to say, in the same manner that you are having a family doctor, you should be having a financial planner that's dedicated to your house. And I normally make a joke with most of my customers. I said, you know what? Even before you think about getting married, you must consult with me first. You don't go and get married without me knowing. Before you even propose that person that you're going to marry, you talk to me so that I can tell you whether you are ready or not. Because I know your financial muscle.
Correct.
And then I will also be able to tell you to say, look, if this is the route that you want to take, 1, 2, 3, 4 must be in place. Now that we are talking financial planning, we're also talking assets in between. Before you go and acquire certain assets, you should have some base. So it's broad. You're going to talk to say, now that I want to buy property, your financial planner will tell you that most probably going to need a deposit. Most probably going to need transfer costs. Most probably going to need a registration cost. There are so many things that talks around money. So you don't just wake up and decide to say, you know what, now that I'm working, I'm going to do this. You consult, and you don't stop consulting.
But before she stops us, I need to tell the audience that you can find wills online.
Yeah.
So if you cannot afford all of this, there are free
Wills.
opportunities for you to put together a will and to be able to do some of this work by yourself. So don't stress about it. This is long term, when you have the money and you can sit down with that financial planner, but please go have a will. Customary marriages, in community, out of community with accrual, have a will. Thank you. Over to you.
Fifi, I want us to close this conversation, but I'd like us to wrap it up very nicely. Now, when we speak about financial planning, let's speak about budgeting and savings strategies that our people can, and MEC said there are solutions that are not costly that we can use. Small, big tips that our people, strategies that our people can use, budgeting and saving, looking at financial planning.
Okay. So I'm smiling because this is one of my favorite topics. Budgeting, what I like about it is that it instills good money habits, right? Because it's something that you can do on a monthly basis. And it just basically, especially for women who are starting out, I say to them, pull out your bank statement, have a look at all the debits and the credits. Usually the credit is that loan salary that comes in, right? And then unless you're in the fortunate position of having multiple income streams, there's usually that one little salary that comes in, and then it's just all these debits, right? But what I say is a budget is simple, right? Have a line item at the top that says this is the income coming in, and then at the bottom have a section that says these are the expenses. But categorize your expenses, right? So there are living expenses that you need for survival: transport, housing, food, school fees, electricity, non-negotiables, right? you have a section for those to say, this is how much I spend on this. So things like DSTV, clothing, eating at restaurants, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual necessities, right? Okay. Now, if you have a surplus over and above that, that's when we can start attending to the long-term stuff. So if you've got debt, you're paying down debt aggressively. You can tell I'm a huge fan of paying down debt aggressively. If you've done that, you can also start saving towards retirement. Ideally, I mentioned earlier the ratio to say that some people are servicing debt and basically using up to 90% of their income just to service debt, right? What you want is you want that ratio to decrease over time. So if it starts at 90%, gradually over time, when you have this habit of looking at your bank statement realistically and seeing where you can cut out all these unnecessary things so that you can funnel money towards long-term goals, you want that ratio then to shift, where you end up where you're spending like 10%, 20% of your income on living expenses. The rest of it is just wealth accumulation. And that's the fun part. That's the part where I get excited, because now this is where you're using this to buy and invest in property portfolios. This is where you've got a share portfolio, and this is where you're basically investing in businesses. You're an entrepreneur. But in order for you to create that space, you need this monthly habit of sitting with that bank statement, realistically looking at it and saying, okay, this is where I am now, but like she said, ultimately this is where I want to end up. And then, but you do it every single month, no exceptions.
Every single month, no exceptions.
Yeah.
Zweli, close it for us.
Yes.
An important subject, we've been talking about the beneficiaries.
Yes.
What are some of the considerations that our viewers must make when selecting beneficiaries?
Sure.
Because I think it's a critical part of risk planning and just financial planning.
And you say in closing.
I said shut it down for us.
So look, in terms of beneficiaries, you can have a look to say the person that I'm choosing, are they sound? Can they handle my finances when I'm no longer around?
Right.
Over and above that, you can select someone within your family or someone that you know that they will have the best interest of your beneficiaries, because some beneficiaries might be small children that are too young to inherit. And certain cases, in most cases that we're seeing now is people actually put their mothers as beneficiaries. Mostly men do that. They put their mothers while they're actually maybe in a relationship or married to you. So what happens if that person that you elected might not be there anymore? So one of the key things that you do, it's either with a will or beneficiaries, continuously updated. Because if it's there, your parent is not there, or the person that you elected is not there anymore, then who's next to benefit? So you can also do that. You can say, this is the first person to get. If they're no longer around, there's the second person or the third person. So you can have such options linked to it.
The trend is the Morocco soccer player.
Of course.
So they are doing that
Mama's
because
boy.
they're all following that Morocco soccer player.
MEC is here today. And she's being her usual self on set, coming up with these small little things that make the team laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a wonderful, wonderful day. I think we have learned so much. But one of the critical things that we want to leave you with is that as an individual, it is your responsibility to understand your financial plan. It is solely you who can make sure that you are able to build what you want, not just for yourself, but for your family and for your children. Continuously on this platform, we have spoken about how important communication is for families, for your children, for us to be able to teach young men and women how to spend their money. Because it's not just about spending, it is also about saving. It is about understanding your budget. It is about using it wisely. My name is Lorato Khomolem. Let me thank our hosts. We will always thank our hosts. Nedbank Olwazini has been wonderful to us. They've allowed us to stay here over and over again, to come back and bring to you this show. We are forever grateful for what they're doing for us. MEC, it's been wonderful having you.
Thank you so much.
It's time for us to go back to the Free State and serve the people of the Free State.
Absolutely. We are serving the people as we speak.
There we go.
Continuously on the ground.
Yes, we continue to be on the ground. My name is Lorato Khomolem. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.